Well, hello everyone. Welcome to another live stream. Hey Nathan.
Hello.
Sorry about the camera.
Good
We just
morning.
had a little camera issue. This is great. This is I think we live stream number 3 now. We skipped last week, but I think we're live stream number 3. And if you're joining us from podcast land, thank you very much. Hey, we announced some big news, and I think it was last week. And so the big news of the week, let me just put it up here, is that we announced our launch date, September 13th. Nathan, so you can't see this, but I threw up the September 13th launch slide here, and this is exciting. How do you feel about the launch date, Nathan? Coming up quickly?
Yeah, sure. We're a couple of months away, 3 months away. Um, and so, it feels like a lot of time until it won't be a lot of time, and then it'll all happen. But no, it's exciting to actually have like a real date where this thing we're going to put out into the world, and we'll see how interested people are about it.
Yeah, it's super exciting just to know that it is kind of right around the corner. Um, yeah, really excited about that. Hey, remember, if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the chat. We'll get to them as we go. Today on our Mythwind live stream, we want to get into the unique character roles and how they interact with one another. And we're going to specifically talk about the farmer today. But before that, I want to show everyone this picture I shared in the Facebook group earlier this week, and it's the progression of cards that we have. And so our graphic designer Marv went through making a bunch of different iterations for our adventure cards. And the adventure cards in the game, it's one of the town actions that you can perform, and oftentimes the adventure card will provide a choice for you, right? As you kind of leave the town and you encounter something in the world, you might learn a little bit more about the world itself. And you can make a choice, and you get to reap the rewards or the consequences, depending on how it works. And so it's neat. Nathan is thick in writing adventure cards. I don't know if there's any like spoiler-free stuff you want to share with us regarding them, but
No, I don't think so. I think we just want to use them as an opportunity to experience the flavor of the world. And on some turns, you might want to just change up what you're doing. Like you don't always have to kind of play for the best possible efficiency engine. You might just want to go on an adventure just for the fun of it. So there's a whole kind of world to explore, and these adventure cards will be a vehicle to experience that. And we also want to do them in a way that the choices you make will impact, obviously the town that you're working in and your role, but also might show up again later, and maybe later in the adventure deck, maybe later somewhere else. So I see them as a good kind of connective tissue for the game.
yeah, it's great. It's in one of those things where maybe it doesn't make the most sense to go on an adventure as far as like maximizing efficiency, but it definitely is a fun way to experience the world a little bit. So it's cool. Just wanted to share that card progression. If you are tuning in on podcast, make sure to join our Discord or our Facebook group. You can find everything on Linktree slash Mythwind, or just Google Mythwind. You can find all of our stuff there. Okay, what are we getting into? We're getting into our character development. And before speaking specifically to the unique characters, I think it's probably best to talk about how the characters kind of came about and where we go from there. And before even Nathan joined on as co-designer on the project, and originally the game was kind of envisioned as the only role that players would be able to take would be that of the farmer. And so you'd have multiple people playing a farmer role and, kind of creating their farms in unique ways, engaging with the town and all those different things. But it was just a farmer, and it was early on, after Nathan joined the team, where I think he's just suggested, hey, what if, we have these other roles, just like in a town, there's farmers, there's crafters, there's traders, there's all these different types of people, and it kind of like unlocked a lot of the game development and how we came about. Nathan, do you remember that? I'm giving you credit, and I think credit is due your way.
Well, I think those early discussions when you were first kind of pitching the game to me, one of the inspirations was Stardew Valley, and wanting to make kind of that kind of experience where you are managing your farm and you're living your life. And the more we talked about it, the more I saw the town that you're interacting with as really the centerpiece of the game, not the role itself. And I think that's kind of probably what spurred me to think like, well, if we're all kind of focused on the town and we have multiple players, I mean, we don't all need to be a
Yeah.
farmer interacting with the town. We could really be anything. And I think that really did kind of open it up to have unique mechanics and create kind of a different story for every character, and not like a literal story, but like in a playable arc, a way that you play. So right now we've been starting our focus on the farmer and the crafter, and already I feel like they're very unique. Like how you interact with the town is a very different kind of experience, and what you focus on doing is very different. And so I think that diversity is already working.
Yeah, yeah, no, 100%. And so it was cool. Kind of, we went from this spot where then each of the roles, and then we started thinking of like other asymmetrical games, like Root, right, where you have very different mechanics inside of the game. And yet they can all kind of interact with one another, and we saw the town, and we talked about it last podcast, that the town was kind of the way that the roles would interact with one another, and we were like, okay, but how do we do the things before we actually get to the town? And this is where each of the roles can really lean into their kind of different mechanics quite heavily. And before we get into the specific mechanics of the farmer, I think it's worth mentioning that probably our largest challenge at the beginning was to find a good and maybe balanced way that the roles could actually kind of come together, and kind of have, like, not necessarily have the same output, but have the same kind of interaction. And so we, most video games, they they like talk about victory points, or these different ways of tracking how well you've done. And so it doesn't, sorry, board games, and so it doesn't really matter what board game you play, there is a measure of what you're doing. And so what we're doing is we're kind of having a measure of how well you use the crafter, how well you use the farmer, how well you use the trader, and the output of how well you do is coin, is gold coins, and it's with these gold coins that it's the currency that all the people share, and as they share, it really does kind of bring kind of this overlocking thing. Sorry, I'm kind of rambling because I'm getting all these errors on my screen saying that my encoding is overloaded. Consider turning something down. I've used too much of my computer. My little computer can't go, but I think we're good now. We're on 30.
We're getting some comments on the live chat, so I think that we're being seen and heard.
Okay.
Mostly just hellos from Kike Rock and Michael Kopitz. So hello to those two.
Oh, perfect. And hey, if the quality's dropped, I'll go back and look at it later. But we can post the podcast, and that'll be easy enough. Okay, so let me throw up a picture of the farmer. There it is. Okay, so Nathan, the farmer is in between the two of us right now. I don't know. Before we even get into it, personal thoughts on the farmer. I love that he's kind of a grumpy, chubby Scottish guy. Just really like that. I don't know.
I feel like with all the outdoor work the farmer does, they'd be in a little better shape, but no judgment.
Maybe he just makes really good food all the time. I don't know. Um, okay, so the farmer, and I was tempted to actually boot up a tabletop simulator and show everyone what we have for the farmer right now. And even though I am a fan of showing people kind of like raw, unfinished stuff. That might have been a little bit too raw and unfinished because
That's right.
we're in the process of doing graphic design for these different roles, for the different boards and the different pieces. But let me just kind of pitch the farmer overall. The farmer is a role that's kind of based in a polyomino mechanic, and their goal essentially is to grow their farm through planting crops, building farm upgrades, tending their crops, and harvesting them ultimately. So they get this nice cycle of planting, tending, harvesting going on throughout the days, throughout the seasons, and the neat thing with how we're planning Mythwind, all the roles, is that there's permanence and there's progression from session to session. Doesn't matter if you pack it up or not. Even though it is a polyomino game like Patchwork or Isles of Cats or all these different types of polyomino games. The neat thing is that when you purchase a farm upgrade, for example, like a sprinkler, and it locks into your board, it stays there and it will benefit you for as long as you have it, for as long as you don't get rid of it. And so on your turn as a farmer, you'll first go into town. You'll perform a town action. Maybe you go on an adventure, and then you always plant after that. And so there's one of three types of crops that you can plant currently, and you can choose from randomly drawn crops. If you choose the one in the first slot, it's free to plant. If you choose the one in the second slot, it costs gold. If you choose the one in the third slot, it costs even more gold to plant. But you might want that third slot gold because it's a certain type of crop that you've already built upgrades for, and you'll benefit more from when you harvest it. And so you get a plant, and then the farmer always does an action related to the town action. So it's, in a sense, it's a little bit like the scythe mechanic, right? The top action, bottom action piece. And so the farmer adventures, and then in the middle they plant, and then the bottom action of the adventure for the farmer is to tend. And so the farmer gets to tend one of their crop tiles by just flipping it over. It's as simple as that. They flip it over, and then that crop tile actually becomes worth more when they go to harvest it on a future turn. And so that's like the general flow, and the real pieces that I think are the hooks as the game progresses is that the farmer can upgrade their skills, and so they can have up to 5 unique skills. Some of these skills are active skills, right? So maybe it makes their harvest action more powerful. Others are passive skills. So if it's raining, they get to automatically tend any one of their crops. There's a bunch of different types of skills that the farmer can upgrade through town, and we'll talk about this later. And then the other kind of progressions, not just the farmer, but the farm itself is growing. So like I mentioned earlier, you actually get to like purchase and buy these unique farm tiles that will kind of unlock different abilities. I mentioned the sprinkler. You can buy a fertilizer that increases the value of all strawberries adjacent to it. You can buy a beehive that gives you a certain amount of gold coins at the end of each season, just kind of like as a passive income. And there's all these different types of upgrades that you can get throughout the game, and really optimize your farm so that you can be planting multiple crops on a turn, and maybe even harvesting on the same turn if you do it right. Okay, I just spit out a lot of stuff. Nathan, please add. Please jump in.
I think you covered all the ground of the farmland, but I think what's interesting is to me is that rhythm of planting, tending, harvesting. It's a very cyclical thing, and we're all doing it within a season. But I think that is sort of like the life of a farmer is, you sort of have seasons. So there's that sort of fun rhythm to the character. The polyomino piece is really interesting as well, where you have to kind of fit everything together, and that adds sort of an extra little challenge if you're planting a whole bunch of stuff. Um, yeah. So and also you mentioned the equipment that you set up and you can run. So there's all these sort of different elements that you need to sequence efficiently. Um, and because all of it's tied to what you're doing in town, that has just a little bit of extra strategic challenge to it. So yeah, I think it's really cool. I think it's also worth saying that, like mentioned, that Kickstarter is a few months away, and right now we're at a point when every time we play test, we're like, well, what if we do this? What if we do this? So we're constantly like kind of thinking of new ideas, and the farmer will probably shift and change, just like the crafter and just like the town. But the bones of what it is this, and that's really what I think the heart of the character is that sort of cycle of planting, tending, harvesting, and then earning your gold, and then kind of doing it over and over, and getting a little better at it every time, getting a little more efficient at it every time, adding skills, adding equipment, um, and yeah, that's how I see
Yeah,
it.
no, exactly. And I think the other kind of main element that we missed is one of the actions you can do in town is to hire workers or sprites.
Yeah.
And we represent these with unique dice for the workers and for the sprites. And then so they go into a pool on your board, on the farmer board, and then the farmer gets to kind of augment, kind of like superpower some of their actions. And so if the farmer has some sprite already hired, when they go to tend, they can actually reduce the a pip of the sprite, right? Lower it from a 2 to a 1, and get to supercharge their tend action, so they get a tend and an additional crop. Um, and in each of the roles, we'll use the dice in a unique way, but it is a real sense of like an evolution and growth, right? Not just the farmer and the farm board kind of growing, but as the town grows, the number of workers and the number of sprites that become available actually increases, which then allows the farmer, the different role, to get more of those workers and sprites so that they can do more on their turn. So you get this nice kind of increased actionable ability.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, hey, that's cool. I think the stream continues to be a little bit of a hit and miss with the frames per second. At least that's what I'm getting with OBS here. Anything else? I'm happy to kind of keep this one short. As we've talked about the farmer, and we'll get into gameplay pretty soon. But next section, I think we'll hone in on the crafter and the unique element of the crafter itself. Anything else you want to add with this, Nathan, before we jump into questions here?
No, I don't think so. I mean, the farmer is a good place to start because that was really the genesis of the whole game. Our feelings were about like something that's relaxing and feels like the game is growing as you go, and the farmer really encapsulates that well.
Yeah, that's great. So, hey, if you have questions, feel free to post them and we'll get to them. But I do have one from Feely, or Feli. Oh, shoot. I'm sorry I'm mispronouncing your name. She was a backer on Stars of Icarios and actually a pretty integral part of the community. So, hey, thanks for joining us. She has a question here. Can you elaborate more on the player count of the game? Board Game Geek says 1 to 2 players. On Discord, you said you don't have a max player count. On another Discord member said maybe the core box has 2 roles, characters, and you need expansions to make it playable with more than 2 roles. Would really like to know what's going on with player count if you can tell us. That's a great question. Thanks. So currently, the Kickstarter, we're going to come to Kickstarter with 2 boxes. The first box is town plus farmer plus crafter. The second box is woodsman plus trader. So regardless of which boxes you buy, you will need to have the town in order to play it. And so it's currently we're launching with 4 roles, with the idea that we want to expand. And there's this little asterisk that we have that it actually players can play, and this is something where we haven't done our due diligence in testing to see how balanced it is with more than 4 people, and how the progression of the town changes. But I'm pretty confident that we can tie the progression of the town to the gold output fairly easily. Nathan, maybe you want to jump in here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is definitely playable at 1. I mean, we've certainly practiced that, and part of the reason that is that because it's an ongoing experience, probably a game that small groups will play together. Sometimes it's hard to get bigger groups together to play a sort of an ongoing game, or I mean, this isn't a legacy game, but that kind of thing where one game affects what's happening going forward. So it definitely works with 1. It definitely works with 2. We do definitely need to work on exactly how it'll look as it scales up, but the interactions with town don't change whoever your role is or however many you have, because they are all earning gold, and they are all boosting the same resources within town. So that interaction never really changes. And things that we're working on is exactly like what parts of the town do we need to kind of gate, and that kind of like what would we have to scale for that kind of a thing. What parts of town are just available to everybody all of the time? Does that involve scaling, that kind of stuff? So some of that stuff still needs to be figured out, but we're confident that that we can do that.
Yeah, and the way I see it is that the main progression of the town is through the buildings, and the buildings have this cost, and for us it's going to be actually, I think, quite easy just to do a fairly linear scaling on the player count and the cost of those buildings. And so what that then opens up for everyone is that the game is very customizable, modifiable. And so if you wanted to play it with 2 sets of, the first box where you have the farmer and the crafter, you have 2 farmers, 2 crafters, and then maybe you want a woodsman as the 5th, that will be doable, which is really neat. And it'll be hard to maybe it'll be interesting to see maybe what the potentials, like the end potentials of that are. Like, can you get 12 people together around a table playing the game? Who knows? But
well, we can also say that it's even interchangeable too, right? If you have, let's say you own 6 but there's only 3 of you playing, you might kind of drop 1 roll, pick up a new one, but carry on with the town from where you left off, kind of a thing. So even though it may only be using 2 or 3 players, you may find value in having multiple roles available to you, just to try different ways to play.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, well, thanks for that question. Drew is asking if this is a board game or an online game. This is a board game, Drew, and we'll be showing much more about the board game shortly. But hey, as you guys can all hear, my dog is freaking out. And so I'm going to go take care of her. But hey, thanks for joining us again for this Mythwind live stream number 3. And we'll be back either next week or the week after. We'll play that one by ear.